Norman castles, beautiful, impenetrable, strategically important, but I tell you what, their wheelchair access was shocking. Coming up on the travel show this week, I explored disability access at some of Europe's leading tourist attractions. I was a little bit worried because when I first come in here, I've seen steps all over the place. But guess what? We've got an ancient monument with a lift. Hallelujah! We check out the tiny creatures that live all around us at the world's first microbe zoo in Amsterdam.
Here is a body scan. It will scan all the microbes you have in your body. On you, but also in you. But without them, you would be dead.
Meep, 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 meep.
Plus, we're in Canada for a symphony with a difference.
People think we're crazy. Of course we're crazy. But actually, no, that's what art is all about.
This week we're in the southeast of England at a place that claims it's the loveliest castle in the world. Now this may or may not be true, but one thing is for certain, Leeds Castle here in Kent wasn't built with wheelchair access in mind. But come to think of it, neither was Stonehenge, Rome's Colosseum, or the Acropolis in Athens. So how do you begin making places like those disabled-friendly without spoiling the monument? And which historic sites defy any kind of alteration, remaining out of bounds for wheelchairs forever? I'm off to Rome to explore some of the city's world-famous historic monuments. Being a wheelchair user hasn't stopped me from achieving a lot of my personal goals. I mean, I've won Paralympic and World Championship medals, and I've been to many countries around the world. And even now, I'm presenting a travel show for the BBC. But despite all of that, there's still one place that's out of bounds for me and my chair, and that's the past. Here in Rome, they've tried to strike the difficult balance between maintaining the character of the city's most famous monument and providing access to wheelchair users. It's 8:30 in the morning and there's already a massive queue going into the Colosseum. Disabled visitors can skip the lines and get free entry, but the sheer number of people here does make getting to the ticket booth a bit of a headache. Grazie. And the surface isn't perfect if you're pushing around in a wheelchair, but I mean, I wouldn't expect anything less. It was built a couple of thousand years ago. I was a little bit worried because when I first come in here, I've seen steps all over the place. But guess what? We've got an ancient monument with a lift. Hallelujah! Up here, the view is spectacular. Even as a wheelchair user, I can enjoy the Colosseum to its fullest. And I can even see from up here down there, there's some ramps to get into certain places. It's great. I was able to access most parts of the Colosseum, but at other tourist attractions across Europe, I've found there's a limit to what wheelchair users can experience. Back in the UK, at Leeds Castle, there are restrictions on what can be changed to make the 12th century building more accessible.
With the specific need for accessibility, we had to look at the bits and pieces you can do and you can't do. And to be honest, there are elements of any stately home or castle where it's almost impossible to get people up because of the rules and regulations imposed on us by external agencies. We can't, for example, just shove a lift in if we'd like to. So, what that means, there are about 4 rooms upstairs that people can't see.
A wheelchair lift and ramp have been added to the lower levels, and a TV monitor lets me see the parts of the castle I can't quite get to. But is that enough? The European Network for Accessible Tourism told us that some think denying access to historic sites is undemocratic. And for some conservationists, it's not just old buildings that are causing a headache, it's whole areas of a town. Take Paris. The French government has pledged to make all public buildings and transport accessible by 2015. Now, many people are worried that that deadline will be missed. Part of the problem is the street layout. Malik runs a tour company which specialises in disabled travel. He recognises that converting the tight cobbled roads and steep steps of central Paris is an uphill struggle.
This street, which is typical from Paris, this street is definitely not accessible. You cannot run easily with your wheelchair, and especially manual wheelchair. If you're coming here with families or groups, you need to be very careful because you can fall down if you block your front wheel.
But he says there can be a compromise between history and accessibility.
I don't want to ruin the historical city, that kind of area like Saint-Michel. It's about money, and that's the key. If we can find the funds, we can do anything.
France's Association for the Disabled recognised that there have been significant breakthroughs. Building work at the Louvre and the 17th century Palace of Versailles has improved accessibility, but they told us more could be done.
It's a question of imagination also. When we are coming with our demand, please make it accessible for us, they always say, oh my God, that's impossible. It's not impossible. Just let's have together, round the table, a bit of imagination.
There's still a long way to go until some of the world's most celebrated monuments are fully accessible. But if somewhere over 2,000 years old like the Colosseum can sort it, surely anywhere can. Leeds Castle here is just a short train ride from London, perfect for foreign visitors, most of whom arrive in the capital. However, for those planning to explore a bit further, they'll find the country's littered with monuments, relics and castles. Here's some of the things you'll need to know. If you're going to be staying overnight while you're in the UK, you can check the National Access Scheme before you book a hotel. This website rates facilities for wheelchair users and for those with impaired sight or hearing. If you found train travel too much of a hassle in the past, you might want to think about giving it another go. Thanks to accessibility improvements across the rail network, some wheelchair users can travel by train without assistance. But if you do need help, it can be arranged. Call up the train company you're travelling with 24 hours before you travel, and they'll arrange for someone to meet you on the platform. And if you're flying, it's worth knowing that the airlines will also accommodate your needs. Under EU law, airlines flying around Britain and the rest of the EU are required to provide assistance to passengers with reduced mobility for no extra charge. Time now for a look at what's been happening in the world of travel in the last 7 days. Here's Krista.
We're talking planes, trains and log flumes in this week's Travel News Roundup. First up, the Ebola epidemic in West Africa is having increasing impact on travel around the world. Airports in the UK and US have begun screening passengers coming from affected countries, taking their temperatures using special laser guns. Hopes are, at the moment, that it's just a precaution and it shouldn't cause too many delays. After a 24-year break in service for an important train line in Sri Lanka, trains have begun running once more. Tourists and locals can now ride the Queen of Jaffna for 250 miles from the capital of Colombo up to the northern Jaffna Peninsula. The President of Sri Lanka joined in celebrations this week, and the reopening of the line is expected to help regenerate the north and improve relations between communities in Sri Lanka. Hold on to your hats. If roller coasters and theme parks are your idea of a good time, a new announcement might just have you spinning in your seat. The construction of a huge new Universal theme park in Beijing has been given the green light. Experiences in the park will draw on China's cultural heritage, and it's set to be one of the biggest theme parks in the world. And finally, in Australia, fans of the opera and the outback had a rare treat this week. Opera in the outback took singers off the stage and into a remote region of North Queensland. Don't worry if you missed it, bookings are now open for 2015.
Still to come on the travel show, we head to Amsterdam to venture behind the scenes at the world's first museum of microorganisms. See you after the break. The Travel Show, your essential guide to wherever you're going. Next up, a music performance with a difference. We're in the harbour city of St. John's on the east coast of Canada.
It's Symphony in the harbor. That means we're not playing violins, we're not playing basses or banjos or guitars. Ya 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 ya, meep 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 meep. We're playing wind instruments and then the ship's whistles. Meep 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 beep beep beep, or something like this, you know. I go from ship to ship and ask the officers if we could use their horn for the day or for that particular time. And most of them are happy to participate because it's something different from the mundane tootling the horns. This is a time score. And the way this works, Coast Guard will give the countdown over channel 11. That's the ship-to-shore radio here. And there's two people. You have a time taker who reads out the time, the seconds, loud, and the other person follows the score.
I am very keen on experimental and weird music, and so when asked to compose a piece of music for 5 to 10 freighters, I easily jumped at the chance. I have no idea what it was going to sound like. Basically, we're given a graphic score where we can kind of basically like fill in dots, so to speak, that indicate when somebody is supposed to honk their horn.
41, 42, 43.
Quite often you can hear a harmony which is actually not intended, but it just happens to come out like this sometimes. It's absolutely beautiful.
8, 9, 10, 11.
Beep, beep.
55,
Beep, beep.
56, 39.
All clear? Good, let's go.
I have no idea what to expect. I think it'll be loud.
It's like jazz.
Exactly.
You're going to take that and do with it what you will. There you go. There's the horn. Countdown. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Sheila was doing the horn today, her first time, and she started out, okay, I got to get this right. I got to do this right, and after a while she got into it and got into the ad-lib, improvised spirit of the thing, and you could almost see her body language was going to the music, and I thought, okay, this is fantastic. 59, 60, yes! Good job.
I didn't get quite the melodic structure I was hoping to get, but it was beautiful to hear anyway.
Well, it's interesting. I guess it puts a little bit of a twist in your lunch hour for sure. So other than that, I think it's pretty interesting and comical. I guess I don't know what else more to make of it, really.
People think we're crazy. Of course we're crazy. But actually, no. That's what art is all about. If Beethoven had been in St. John's, or if he'd been here today, he certainly would have written the Harbor Symphony.
And to end this week, we head to Amsterdam, where Krista Larwood was given a sneak peek inside the world's first interactive microbe zoo. Its aim is to shine a new light on the tiny microscopic creatures that live all around us.
I'm here to see some of the most powerful creatures in the world, but it's not elephants or lions or grizzly bears. In fact, these are invisible to the naked eye. This is Micropia, a world-first museum dedicated to microbes. Single-cell organisms so small that millions of them can fit onto the point of a needle. They are found everywhere in nature, and Micropia opened its doors to the public, intending to show the secret life of these tiniest of creatures. It may not be such an easy sell, however. When I hear the word microbe, I don't exactly think about an exciting museum exhibit. For me, it's about dirt and bacteria and getting sick. So as far as I'm concerned on this topic, ignorance is bliss. But it's exactly this attitude that the exhibition is seeking to change, according to the mastermind of the whole concept, Haig Balian.
Microbes are on us, they're in us, they're in our food, they're on our hands, they're in our bellies, and they are ruling the world. They are the most powerful, most successful organisms. And the funny thing is, nobody has shown them ever, because they are invisible. And we made the invisible visible.
And just how Haig's team have done this was revealed when the travel show was offered an exclusive sneak peek at the museum as the finishing touches were put on before the public opening. There are digital images, microscopes, and living microbe colonies. There's a kissometer, which tells patrons how many microbes are transmitted during a French kiss, and this contraption.
So what is it we have here?
Here is a body scan. It will scan all the microbes you have in your body.
Oh, hello.
So we are being scanned now, counting how many microbes you have, how many microbes I have.
Look at all those.
Yeah,
I'm
they're
covered in
everywhere.
them.
In fact, it turns out the average person has around 1.5 kilos of microbes on and inside their body, most of which are beneficial, helping to digest food and keep our immune systems and metabolism on track.
Let's have a look in the large intestine then. Oh, there's a lot. Nearly 99% of all bacteria on the body live in your intestines.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got 100 million per milliliter of intestine. How am I supposed to feel about this?
Well, accept it. Because if you wouldn't have them, you would be dead, a long time dead already, because you cannot live without them. They protect you. Basically, you're an ecosystem. And you can try to get away from it, but it's not possible.
We're stuck with them. They're here to stay, so better get used to it.
And love them and get rid of the nasty ones if they are there.
This is a tree of life. It's maybe hard to imagine, about 2/3 of all life on Earth is invisible.
Microbiology isn't exactly the easiest topic to build a museum around. Museum director Evelyn Hensel and her team faced a serious challenge to make it accessible for the public.
Unfortunately, there's a big gap between this science, what is very complex, and a general audience, the general public. And Microbia will bridge this gap. So we will translate this difficult science and bring it in a nice and understandable way to a broad audience.
The museum's living microbe exhibits are grown in an on-site laboratory.
This is a Celodesmus, that is a normal algae, green algae that lives in fresh water.
What's the main function of this? I mean, you're basically just babysitting microbes.
Yeah, we culture them a lot because, I mean, a lion you can forget to feed it for a day, but a microbe you have to feed it every day. Some will die in 8 hours. So.
What would you ideally hope that visitors to the museum would take away about microbes?
That they wouldn't be afraid anymore.
Well, after an afternoon spent at the museum, I've gained a newfound respect for my many millions of microorganisms. But the question is, can the museum convert the masses to the microbe cause?
I think that would be my dream, to have more people in the world to be able to see what this invisible world is, which is now unseen. And of course, we have to wait if the public likes it, but I cannot imagine they don't.
So that's your lot for the travel show this week. Coming up next week, we're in Iceland, where work is underway to build what could become the world's biggest man-made ice tunnel. So join us for that if you can, and don't forget, you can follow us real time on the road by signing up to all our social media feeds, and all the details for that should be on your screens right now. But for me, Adia Deputan at Leeds Castle in Kent, it's goodbye and see you next time.